Hello, everybody. It is I, Theo Kirkley. Thank you for tuning in. I hope I make it worth your while. Here I am sitting in this new chair that I've gotten. Uh, Yesterday, I asked a friend to help me get some furniture with his truck, and I got this nice old chair here. I also got a office chair and a table and some chairs in there. And I also got a box spring. I've been sleeping on a mattress on the floor, so the box spring will be nice. It means I can get up easier. As you can see, I do have a cold sore, which is starting to heal up, which is nice. Um, anyway, I'm here kind of starting my day. Wishing I could get up and drink some water. I'm dehydrated. I just spent the whole day sleeping, and I have about an hour before work. Um, so I need to prepare for work. But I kept thinking these thoughts, and I wanted to share some things. So here I am wanting to share. And just thinking about money, and I'm thinking about dreams, and I'm thinking about wants and hopes and desires. And I'm thinking I'd like to teach divine truth to people. It's funny, I had a coworker last night, and he's a bit of a forceful man, a pushy man, but he has some beautiful aspects to him where he talks to people and he speaks his mind and he puts his foot down and he says this is how I'm going to do it, and he goes and he does it. And I hear Jesus talk a lot about people like that and how they're special people, people that say they're going to do something and they go and do it. And how truly rare that is. I remember Jesus talking once about Paul in the Bible, the man that used to be kind of an assassin to many new Christians, but then on the road to Damascus, Jesus decided to appear to him, and he changed his ways and his mind and his heart, and he ended up being a quite a force for good. It would seem. I don't know much about Paul's story, especially the aftermath, but um, I never really read that part of the Bible. But most people that with some knowledge of the Bible are aware that he's kind of a bigger figure, bigger historical figure. Anyway, I don't think I've ever been that kind of a person, really. The kind of person who says they're going to do something and goes and does it. I wish I was, but um, and it kind of brings some sadness to me to think about. But the other day I thought about it, and I looked at my life and I considered my current position, and I had to have some tears about it and just recognize that this is not the life that I thought I would have. Growing up, I was pretty zealous religiously, and I believed very strongly in my religion, and I didn't necessarily know why I believed so strongly or why I was so passionate, at least in myself. But my passion didn't really shine through in my life, I don't think, very much. But at least in my own mind, I was a very passionate, zealous man or youngster. And then when things started to unravel, it was very difficult for me. I felt disillusioned, I felt um, hoodwinked and betrayed. And that was one of the things that drove me to wish to end my life, because I felt life was a sham. I felt God was a liar, and um, truth was not something that was attainable, or or it was an unfortunate thing in the sense that you are part of a random, orderless, chaotic universe, and your existence is a mistake. Your existence is not even an afterthought. It's non purposeful. There's no intent behind it. And so I felt there wasn't much of a reason to live. And the ideas that I had as a man to idealize, um, things like love and virtue were just kind of pipe dreams, like soulless, empty, you know, dreams, and they were not something that could be granted. They weren't wishes that could be granted to live a virtuous life, to have happiness everywhere. And the man I talked to yesterday, going back to that, he talks quite a bit, and I have to keep him in check because he's lived a varied life. He grew up in Kuwait by Iraq, and he had a father that was a diplomat, and he grew up going to many different schools across the world, really. And then he found work for National Geographic, and his travels only continued. And so he's a very interesting man. He was a diver for National Geographic. He worked for the U.S. military as well, and he ended up here in New Mexico, of all places. And he also works in corrections with myself. But he's, like I said, very forceful. And whenever I say an idea, he is quick to respond, and so quick to the point of interruption, uh, with an idea of how I can make it better, of what I ought to be doing in order to make it better. And while his opinions aren't always unwelcome, they are frequently unwelcome. And I have to tell him, listen, I'm not interested. I know you want to tell me this is what you think. And while I appreciate his candor, I don't appreciate the constant, this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be doing, this is why you're wrong, this is what you should be doing. And also, I just happen to believe that in the sense of love, he's wrong on some aspects. So, and he's not willing to hear my ideas on it. So that's fine. But in the midst of all that, I was able to have a nice um, talk with him about, the divine truth teachings that I'm not so much following, but at least listening to. And I said to him, um, I'll make this quick because you're probably not going to be very patient with me. And he said, why? And I said, well, you like to talk a lot. Which is funny to say because I love to talk too, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people want to listen to me. On my channel, I know I talk a lot, but in my personal life, you'd be surprised how little I talk. I, I find myself listening quite a bit. Um, but um, surprisingly, my friend, he listened better than I thought. And I showed him the man that I thought was Jesus. I showed him a picture of AJ and Mary on their website, divinetruth.com. And he was he was like, oh, he didn't have much to say, but he looked at the picture. I think there is something about their picture that's quite engrossing. And I think when I show people a picture of Jesus and Mary, and for the most part, they're kind of engaged by what they're seeing, the faces that they're seeing. And also, I decided, well, let me show him a video. I just went to YouTube and I picked on the secrets of the universe, and I just showed him some seconds of Jesus talking. And again, surprisingly, he watched and he seemed engaged. And for once, he was quiet. Anyway, but what I really wanted to do was allow him to hear some things, hear my thoughts on, or what I've heard about the divine truth, about how God is, the creator everyone and the universe and every human being, and how God created souls, and souls have, um, the soul part of them, and that is broken up into two parts at the moment of incarnation, and you get a spirit body and physical body connected to one part, and a spirit and physical body connected to another part when two sets of parents have sex and an egg is fertilized. So yeah, just that, and I talked about how we live in three separate universes essentially. Um, the the soul universe, the spirit universe, and the physical universe. Although I have heard recently that in the past few years that really the spirit universe is part of the physical universe in a sense. So that's an interesting idea. Um, but I don't want to go into that now. But anyway, but he ended up listening to the whole thing, and I was surprised by that. And I don't know if it was before or after that, but he revealed his thoughts to me, which were that we're never going to have a loving world. We're never going to have um, peace on earth. The Christian ideal, the Christian dream, peace on earth, goodwill to men. I remember my father often um, repeating that slogan. Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Um, and I do find that quite sad. In my most down times, in my times of deepest depression, I scoffed at the idea, at that very same idea, and um, I also chose not to believe that a better world could be made, a world without harm, a world without violence, a world without war, a war without theft, a war without sexual violence, a world without exploitation, enslavement, and it's sometimes hard to talk about what that world would feel like, and the love that might be there, because it's hard to imagine love. But it does seem to be easier to imagine all the things that we know are wrong and we would like to live without. And he doesn't believe that such a world is possible. And I hear that even from the most stalwart, the most admirable of people. I hear this idea frequently that, you can excel as a human being, you can strive towards something, you can have a drive towards an ideal and make yourself a better person. But you will always live in a world of pain and struggle. I think it was Marx that said that life is essentially a struggle, or something to that effect. I think Buddhists basically believe that life on Earth is constituted by pain and heartache and struggle. And in many ways, Christians believe that. I don't think that's a true Christian belief, but many Christians believe that we are just sinners and we can only be redeemed by the whatever Jesus was meant to have done for us. Um, but I find that quite sad. I think about when I was a child, and I think about having dreams and having goals, and yes, I'm not the man that I hoped that I would be, and I'm surprised that I didn't fit the dream that I had. But I've learned some things. I've learned that you can coerce a person if you kind of infect them with spiritual ideals and dreams, and if you infuse them with, you know, an idea of what's right and what's moral and what you could say their duty is. And then if you have them believe that they are fulfilling their duty and you provide, validation for their life, then you can get them to do quite a lot. And I'll give you an example. When I was growing up in the church I was raised in, the Unification Church, who many call a cult, and I don't really question that, there were many people who were part of a fundraising organization called MFT, Mobile Fundraising Training or something. And what they would do is they would go around, and they were famous at the time for selling flowers and such things at airports and all across the country, in major cities and parking lots everywhere, whatever trinkets at a high value. And they would just sell these things and make a lot of money, and all that money would go to the church, to the church coffers. And it wasn't such a huge thing it was huge in America, but it was quite huge in Japan. And the church made a lot of money. The Korean church, you might say, made a lot of money off of Japanese people. And recently there was a scandal about the whole thing where I believe the son of a Unification Church member killed a foreign, killed a former prime minister of Japan. So you can look that up if you're interested. But there's a lot of resentment towards the Unification Church because a lot of people feel that they were swindled out of their money to give to, you know, swindled out of their money, and their money went to this church, and not towards good ends. Anyway, um, I grew up learning about this organization, and they were extolled in my in church sermons, and people talked about their time in MFT, and they had great stories to share about the struggles that they went through, and the education that they had spiritually going through these trials, selling and fundraising, and there was a certain idealization of all of this. I don't know that I myself had wanted to become a fundraiser, but I certainly had some idealization of that kind of work. And one thing that they would talk about is just the long hours, pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing their body, and how the ones who pushed harder, the ones that worked harder, the ones also that brought in more profit, were um, given accolades and more validation and et cetera, and just told that they were very special and doing the will of God better than everyone else, and everyone else was supposed to kind of try to get to their level and aspire to also be a great profit maker, and also work hard and work long hours at the expense of their body and everything. And there was this whole idea of mind over body, to ignore the fleshly desires and to foster the mind's intellectual power, I suppose, and ability in favor of, or no, not in favor, but just, yeah, to support the mind and ignore the body. And yeah, it wasn't until I actually joined a team like that, not quite so harsh, but I was actually in Korea at the time, and I was part of this team for about 40 or 50 days, and I realized at a certain, well, I don't know that I even realized, but I tried to work these long hours, making money for the church. And at the time, the team that I was a part of, for a lot of it, there was a time where we were selling socks for the last 20 days or so. But for the initial 30 days, we were fundraising with a box, a donation box. It was myself and another partner from the church. And um, we would we would jump on a Korean bus without paying, or we would jump on a subway train, and I think we had to pay in that case. But we would get in the front of the whole bus or train car, and we would speak some lines in Korean, and we would ask people to donate to help starving people in Africa. And I believed that we were helping starving people in Africa, and I believed that we were supporting their lifestyle, supporting their shelter and food and all of that. And in the back of my mind, I thought, I've heard about people and cults that have lied to their people and hoodwinked and said one thing and did another. But I don't think we would do that because we're more virtuous than that. But I was getting to the point where in my life I could see that quite a few people around me were corrupt, even though they said they weren't, even though they made out that they weren't. So there was a slight chance that we were also corrupt. But I found that I couldn't do this. I couldn't keep going um, in denial of my body, and I couldn't work hard in the way that I was meant to work hard. And essentially, I wasn't capable of becoming the idealized version of myself that I thought I was capable of becoming. So that means that the dream of being a virtuous man was out of reach. And personally, that was very, very difficult for me to accept. And I was extremely hard on myself. And I thought if I couldn't do it, I don't know what my life is for. I'm really just nobody. I'm just a lazy bum. And um, I would end up becoming just a regular guy who, you know, can't achieve anything for God, can't um, further the providence and the goals of that God has for humanity. I can't help create a world of peace and joy, a kingdom of heaven on earth, because I don't have the qualities. I find myself wanting to rest and do other things. I don't want to do this all day. And I now actually appreciate that man that I was, that could say that I couldn't do what was asked of me. I couldn't do anything that I was told. Some things that I was told to do just seemed too extreme to do, and I couldn't do it. And I remember moments where um, I kind of had a psychotic break, where I was by myself and I just could not go any further. I simply couldn't go any further. There was one particular moment where I stopped and I sat on a rock with my donation box, and I thought I would just sit there for a little bit, and I ended up staying there for quite some time, and I felt quite lost. And in such moments, we're taught to believe that we're being spiritually like influenced in a negative way, and we're allowing bad spirits to control us and all of that. And so that's what that idea is what I was struggling with when I was sitting there on the rock. But at the same time, I just felt that I could not go on. I couldn't move forward. I couldn't do what I was asked to do. I felt drained. I felt lost. And I felt broken. And I also realized that I felt very far from the being that I hoped that I could have a relationship with. That really all of my spiritual striving and all my zeal and all of my desire in life, all my spiritual energy was ultimately meant to try to build something with God. Try, try to build a relationship with God. And I was, I knew that I was not, it seemed that I wasn't qualified. It seemed that I was very sinful and depraved for allowing bad spiritual influence, for not pushing forward and meeting my financial goals for the day and getting whatever profit I could get. But in my heart, I just felt in general, whether I pushed forward that day or not, I was far from my creator, my parents. And it was in that moment that I wrote a song, and I think I'm too teary to sing the whole thing, and I don't know. And I won't sing the whole thing, but it went something like this. Um, where did you go, my little king? I made you one bright sunny morning. You were a vision, you were my dream. A patch of golden sunlight on a stream. I racked my brain and found something new. The emptiness I found inside was you. I cry when you cry, laugh when you laugh. I loved you from the start, I always have. And it kind of goes on. Where did you go? I saw a silent teardrop on your way. And God refers to me as a little butterfly. So obviously that makes me want to cry, and it's my attempt at putting God's love and feelings for me into a song with words, but you can't really do that. You can only try to. You can only attempt to put God's words and God's feelings into words. Um, but that was a big moment for me. And it was so strange to juxtapose the the incriminating feelings I was having towards myself of not being good enough to fulfill my objectives as far as my church was concerned, the expectations they had of me, and also just wanting to get closer to God and always finding that relationship elusive. I didn't know where I was going to go with this video. I didn't think I'd talk about that moment. But it's a very special moment for me. Uh, and actually, I felt pretty bad the rest of the day, and I felt like some of the feelings I had that day were some of the feelings. This was before I ended up trying to end my life a few times, and this is towards the end of my teenage years. I was about 17, going on 18 at the time. And I believe there was something there. I believe I was kind of connecting to God to a certain degree, but I don't know for sure. But and also I want to say that there's problems with that song. Like when I say the emptiness I felt inside was you, God saying that the emptiness that He felt was myself, and He was kind of bringing myself. I don't know how to create. Let me just say that. To be honest with you, I don't know how to create beings. I've never created a being before that I remember. Um, New Age people believe that before they incarnate, they have their mind washed of all the previous life's memories. But if that's true, then, I can't say very much to that. But I can tell you, I've never had any memory of creating another being. I've drawn pictures and I've painted and I've created little things, but nothing that moves, nothing that has its own sense of free will. So I can't tell you what goes into creating, you know, a being with free will, the way that God has done for us. But I now don't believe that God creates something out of an empty feeling, and so I really want to correct that. But yeah, that was my feeble attempt at talking about God's heart at the time. But I really should close this video and get to work. So I don't really know how to do that. I guess I'll just say that there's still a part of me that believes in a better world, and and thinking about where I am and the current state of Theo in his life. Um, it's a wonder that I can even say that. Because I'm so far away from the expectations I still have for myself. Um, um, but I think there is a part of me that still believes in that, and I think I need to nurture that little kernel of aspiration as best I can, and try my best to continue to develop that relationship with God, and at least prove to myself that maybe there is no God. Maybe there's not much to these divine truth teachings, but as far as I'm concerned, even if my life is rather short, I want to spend the rest of it trying to prove, one way or the other, that there is a God or not, that He loves us or not, He, she loves us. Sorry, I'm so weepy and I don't have a voice. Oh man, I hear Jesus talk and I'm like, how are you not crying when you're talking? I've heard him cry like a handful of times, and the rest of the time he seems pretty calm. But he's talking about pretty powerful stuff. I feel like I should be able to just make it through this stuff, but I find it hard almost a lot of the time. Anyway, whatever. Um, Sorry for being so weepy and whatnot, and losing my voice, but I don't know. I think we can strive for a better world, and I mean, the one thing I could take away, I told my friend yesterday that I asked him actually. I said, "Okay, maybe we can't fix the world, but there's one person that you can't fix, and who's that?" And he said, "You." And that's what I believe, and that's at least what I've been told. And so my shift has kind of changed from being a savior of mankind, which is definitely one of the things that I was indoctrinated with growing up, to trying at least to save myself and trying to find whatever joy I can find. God wants me to have joy. I don't get how this works, but If you want love for love's sake, I think that you can get it. But if you want love because you want the benefits of love, it might be harder to get. And don't quote me on that. I'm not really sure how it works, but it's like if you just like my life sucks, so I want it to be better. So okay, I'll get this love or whatever I'm supposed to get from you, God. I'll seek and strive for it as long as you make my life better because it sucks right now. It's very a lot of misfortune in my life. Let's get rid of that. Let's get a little more happy, please. You know, that attitude I think is not going to help you receive God's love. But if you're actually asking God herself for her love because you want her love specifically, then I think that's a more pure motive, and you're more likely to get it. So, God, I cannot stop crying. What the hell? All right, I'm just gonna end it there because if I keep going, I'm just gonna cry more. So I don't know what I was trying to say here. I don't know what I'm gonna call this video, but long video. Wish you well, and yeah, keep striving for the important stuff. God's love and becoming a better person. Thanks for watching.